Wikibrands Collective Webcast, the Scale episodes. Hello, my name is Doyle Buehler, and we are the Wikibrands Collective Transformation Webcast. We are an on-demand collective of transformation talent that is upsetting the apple cart of the professional game. This is the business scale and growth episodes, a regular rundown of what it takes to achieve solid growth. And I'm delighted to be joined by our two guests. We have Geoff Whitlock, founder, Custodia and Lock & Co. from Toronto. And we also have our regular guest, Sean Moffitt, the managing director of Wikibrands Toronto. And I'm your host, Doyle Buehler, the CEO of Dept.Digital. So let's get a quick introduction from you guys. Geoff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Geoff Whitlock. I'm an entrepreneur, I guess. I've thought of 30 some odd companies, built 9, sold 4, and have 2 active. Wow. So our last business, we just scaled from 9 million to 50 million over 5.5 years. We built a digital agency at the same time and scaled that from 0 to about 6 million in the same period of time, at the same time as the other one. And now I'm working on 2 other ones that I believe are bigger than the last ones. So it's that's my game, is just building them and trying to grow them up. And if they don't work, I pivot out and build another one.
Oh, fantastic. Love to hear some more stories about that. And then Sean, who's back again for some more insights and information. Tell us.
Managing director of Wikibrands. Unlike Geoff, I come at it from the other way. He's like startup gone scale. I'm like former corporate recovering guy gone scale. So I'm going the other way. We've done studies on corporate innovation. We've done studies on startups. I'm very excited about this middle group of companies where it's just like, you're not trying to figure things out, and you're not like this big, massive 10,000 employee beast. You're somewhere in between, and I think that's what we're talking about today. So, yeah,
absolutely. And my name is Doyle Buehler. As I mentioned, I'm based out of Australia, and I run a strategic consultancy, Dept.Digital, on digital transformation. So today we're going to discuss a lot of growth and scale. We've got the field guide. We've got a lot of questions coming up. So why don't we jump right into it and say, how do you guys define a company? How do you define scale and growth? What does that actually mean? Geoff, you talked a lot about a lot of different companies scaling and growing, and could we just sort of bring that back, and what do you actually mean here? What is it?
It's a company that wants to scale. From my perspective, is a company that has ambition to do more. It's like an individual. It's like personal growth. If I want to learn French, I got to go and I got to learn French, and there's a certain roadway I have to take to learn French. A lot of companies, they're just not satisfied with where the business is currently, or they have a big vision of what they want to achieve with the business. So that's the inflection point, is scale. Is that I can see something better, I can see development, a bigger outcome, and we got to get there. So that's kind of the starting point to scale.
Okay, and Sean, how do you define it?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's everything attitudinally about a scale company that I would say I would throw maybe 3 additional lenses on it. Like, I kind of view there's a startup, and startups can pivot, right? Like, they aren't working on something good and they pivot to something because they're so small and nimble that they can do that. Scale companies for me are people that have started to figure out some things, and it's more about, how do I take this now and put on a rocket, right? How do I accelerate? It tends to be, I find, if you're a web company, a lot of times the definition is you're growing at 15 to 20%. And I find like an important distinction between a startup and a scale company is, you've got employees. You've probably got about, I think it's about, somebody told me there's a magic number 13. I've always said 15. When you got 13 or 15 employees, it starts to become real. Like, you start to pay for people's salaries, their family salaries. There's different risks at play. And it's no longer the 3 buddies that I knew in university or the 3 girlfriends that I knew back in kind of the early days. It's, I'm bringing other people into my group that might not have such a close association with me, and you're running a real business. So that's, I think, what in my terms is a scale company.
Okay. And so is that typically what we're going to talk about then, is those companies that are in the 13 plus stage and beyond, or are we talking the startups?
I mean, I'll let Geoff speak to it, but I think the practices are probably applicable to a lot. But I think the sweet spot is, if you're in that world, you probably have a greater need to do certain things better than others.
Okay. I see like a lot along the line. I agree with what you're saying. I see the ambition to scale a business, and if we're going to stick on, let's pretend it's 10 to 15 employees, like the ambition it takes to scale a business, when you get to have those employees in the room, you got to get them all on the same page, and everybody understanding this ambition and what we're trying to achieve here. You can do that with just your buddies. You can do that with 20,000 people. But in this discussion, this company that's finally found they've found something. They found the nugget. They've got product market fit. They've successfully been able to launch it and generate some revenue and get their first few customers, hire some people, and now I want to take that higher. But again, it's that ambition, and then being able to infect the others, or bring the others on board to that ambition, and really paint the picture of where we're going to go.
But is that sort of the dream, or is that the reality? Like,
oh no, that's very much the reality. It's very much at least in the companies I've led, like whether they've got 100, 200 employees or not, if you could, if you can tell them where you want to grow to, why you want to grow there, what the outcome looks like when you get there, creating a process and a system to get there via goals and via OKRs becomes a lot easier.
So how, like, percentage wise, if you know, or just sort of your sense of it, like how many businesses actually get into that stage where they start to scale, or how many just sort of sit and stagnate? Not necessarily stagnate, but they're happy, at sort of the smaller stage. Like, is there a turning point, an inflection point where the business says, okay, let's do this, and how many businesses are we talking? Any ideas?
And I think this is very country and situation dependent, even industry dependent, right? I think you tend, if you read 100 articles online, 70 of the companies talking about scale are probably have some web or technology as a component of what they do. It's just how companies scale quickly nowadays. So that's just, I would say 2 or 3 metrics in my mind. One, the success rate, and I'm trying to remember the success rate of scale companies going to corporate, but it's very low. It's similar to startups growing to become a scale company. That would be one thing. Certainly in my neck of the woods and Geoff's neck of the woods, Toronto tends to underperform versus some of its US kind of counterpart cities, New York, Boston, San Francisco, in terms of scaling its companies. I think we have some inherent geographic challenges that we sometimes have to get over, and some other things there. So I know it's a particular concern here, and probably in Australia where you are too, where you're not kind of in the center of the world, wherever that is. And I would say it's funny, like, I think you got into, how do you know when you're a scale company? How do you know you're building stuff? And I remember the first conversation I ever had with Geoff. He's like, when I really felt I was a scale company, when journalists started to want to write about me versus me chasing them, which I thought was a really good shorthand way of going, okay, you got something good when, like, time-stressed journalists want to actually write about you. So maybe that's the type of company we're talking about.
I still I don't want to pound on the leadership of the entrepreneur, but I still put it right back on the ambition of that leader. We do have a lot of companies here that either get purchased or go under by, say, U.S. companies, either purchase them or crush them in the larger formats. But in the smaller formats, like when you're talking like a small mom and pop shop that's got 20 employees that just wants to open another place, like that requires an entrepreneur's ambition, an entrepreneur's vision to say, okay, I'm going to put the extra few hours a day in to open this next place so I can scale it to this extra location. Versus, say, a larger company that if I say I have 500 customers in my new company this year, I'm going to get this to 1,700 next year, and here's how I'm going to do that. There's this significant volume of ambition that it takes to actually execute a scale company, and a lot of folks can put say if you follow Vern Harnish, an unbelievable, wonderful person to follow in Scale Up. So he wrote Scaling Up in the Rockefeller Habits. The amount of people that take on that versus the amount of people that succeed through that, I don't believe a lot of folks recognize what it takes to actually do it. It's not as simple as being on TV or getting attention in a webinar.
Or having a webcast.
Oh man, it's like you got to identify the top 20, 30 activities per person. You got to streamline those activities. You got to hit those every single day. You got to dig the holes, or the foundation can't be built and the building will never go up. If you don't dig the holes or know what holes to dig, and that's ultimately where I see a lot of the failure happening in my small circles, is when I say you come up with the activities it takes to scale a company, because I've got this 1,700 customer ambition. But now I've outlined these 15 activities I've got to do every single day, no matter what, to hit this, and then trying to get people to execute those activities or agree on those activities as it's going down the line, and then do it for a sustained period. That's like going to the gym. You got to go every damn day or every couple of days, or else the muscles just get flabby. It's just the way that it is. If you go every few months, your odds on getting like a health issue or some sort of sprain are way better. You have to do it every day.
So you said leadership being one of the drivers, discipline being another driver. What else? What should companies focus on?
I'll throw a couple in. I think there's a different risk mentality associated, like as Geoff said, there's a different type of beast that wants to be in this position. Like, this is not a cushy kind of like work your 50-hour corporate week. And I think there's a risk mentality, both in terms of I am so fully gobsmacked committed to whatever notion I'm doing here. And I'm putting a lot of stuff on the line, which tends to lead, I'm going to be somewhat contradictory here on what two things I'm going to say. The risk piece tends to make younger people maybe that don't have families that want to get in this game because they can put it all on the line. Conversely, when I look at a scale company versus a startup, I find that people that have a bit of maturity, a bit of age on their body, that have actually been in a couple of different scenarios, are really, really effective at the scale game because they know what they don't know, right? I think sometimes, and I'll include myself in my 20s, I just thought I was awesome and I knew everything. And you completely close yourself to the blind spots that, when you're an entrepreneur doing a scale company, you need to be good at 15, 20 things. I guarantee you don't have 15 or 20 of those things in your background if you're 27 years old versus 37, right? So I don't know where the age game is, but you need kind of both the risk and competency kind of abilities as well.
Or you need to be able to backfill that with the right team, right? Like, if you don't have certain things and you don't have knowledge, like under building a team that can actually own an OKR, or actually, I don't know if you guys know that's own like a goal and to live that goal. And if you can convince them to live that goal, like Google, John Doerr, a great book, Measure What Matters, for anyone. It's just such a great book on how to structure a scale company and to get from one step to the next step to the next step. And then the understanding of the ownership required at each step by the team to be able to grow it. If the team doesn't believe it and own it, it will not grow, right?
I will say exactly that, but with one caveat though, Geoff. Sometimes when you're that young entrepreneur that, and I don't want to pick on young, it's just not exposed to a lot of different business scenarios. If you can get to that state where you can trust other people to actually lead that stuff, great. I'm even talking about that one step before where it's like, can you even appreciate that this is something that a company of 50 people, 100 people need? I was just in a company the other day, 40 people in the company. They had grown substantially. They probably had about $5 million in revenue. And I was doing a full day workshop with them. And their founder, and he'll admit this to you, didn't really at the start of the day put a lot of importance in process and meetings and communicating broadly to the company. Didn't put a lot of stock in onboarding because previous to that, it was just like, well, you'll talk to me as the founder. Well, you don't have the time anymore to talk about it. And didn't put a lot of stock in telling your stories to the world. Like, his funding model was more B2B and he didn't need a lot of people to know. Now he needs a lot of people to know. And so understanding that it's a need, I find, is one of the biggest challenges of the founder that kind of was the boy king startup that becomes this bigger thing and has these blind spots.
Yeah, you definitely hit it on the head for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like they have to really understand and have that awareness, really, to be able to go, yeah, this is something that we want to do, and then sort of build the team and get that knowledge and help that they need as well. So businesses that don't scale, are they, let's talk about failures. How are they missing the mark? Where are they missing the mark? What's the success rates here?
But we can just quick point of it doesn't mean they failed because they don't scale.
Okay.
Like we can dissect like a lifestyle entrepreneur and someone who just wants to run a business and who just wants to have an income. They've got 100 staff, 50 staff, 20 staff. They just want to run a company. And they're good at it. It doesn't necessarily mean that I want to work 12 hours a day or 15 hours a day, and I want to put this pressure on my company. So if we could take that group of people out of failure, because that is not a failure. Just because you've built a great company and don't want to grow it really fast doesn't mean you failed. On the other side, I still lean it right into ambition and the character to back up your ideas. If you have the character to back up your plans, you've got a better chance of success than if you don't have the character to back up your plans. So I imagine a lot of failure comes from the inability of entrepreneurs or leaders to actually back up the great big visions in their head.
So what if you get into a company perspective, like Geoff, you said you've kind of dealt with a lot and create a lot. What if you get to the point where it's like, oh, I'm not sure this company is gonna be able to scale? Do you keep working at it? Do you reassemble the team? Do you look at the tech? Do you look at what they're doing? The process.
It depends on the GP and the profit margins in the business. Yeah. If you can keep a business running that's got a solid GP and a solid contribution to the bottom line, and the business can run, and like any business that has a market can grow, right? It's like if it's got a market, it can grow. If you're a Christmas tree sales guy, you can buy the other 200 Christmas tree sales guys. Like you can always grow a company, if your current format is not growing, in fact, if there's no contribution margin, there's no success, everyone's in like I would pivot myself, I would close it. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not necessarily an operator of a big business. If you're an operator of a big business and your business is stagnant and it's not growing, you need new blood. You need someone to look at it differently than you do. Because any business can grow. If that's the objective and it's not growing, you need new blood. You need someone to look at the problem differently than you're looking at it.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Sean, what do you think?
I think there's customarily, and this may show a little bit of my bias, there's two things that when you get to become a scale company that you probably have to add as disciplines. And you don't need these as startups. I'll admit to you as a marketer, you don't need a head of marketing as a startup. You really don't. When you become a scale up and you need to tell your stories, and it's just not personal relationships anymore. It's about telling great stories, building a customer base, creating a community around your brand. I'm sorry, you need some marketing capability, and certainly scale companies have typically a massive acceleration of marketing spend. So there's more dollars resting on the line in terms of what you do. So that's one capability. And the other one tends to be when you get to about 30, 50 people, maybe you bring in a head of HR. And so I think people become a much bigger part of this world. Previously you probably filtered people based on relationships and passion for that initial idea. Now you're bringing other people in that are foreign to the founder and kind of the early stages. You really got to bring the really good people in and build the culture and leadership that makes the company get to that next level. So I think, if I looked at impasses and hurdles, it tends to be poor marketing and poor people culture tend to get the better of scale companies.
Okay. Excellent. And so you've got a couple of products and that sort of thing, workshop and a survey as well. Can you tell us a little bit about those, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm finding with just our kind of reincarnated world of Wikibrands, one of our most interesting client sets is a scale company. They're not big enough to think they know all the right answers and staff for it, and yet they have real big ambitions, as Geoff has said. And so we've tended to focus just as a full company on scale companies, and we've done two things. One, we do have a workshop and lab that we're doing that brings the best of breed talent, including guys like Geoff, to help out with companies and consult with them in terms of what their affliction is and hopefully overcome their blind spots. I think you've got a link up there, wikibrands.com/scale-workshop-lab. I should get better with my URLs, but that's where it is. By the time this webcast airs, we'll also be throwing a couple of surveys online all about scale as well. So we don't have all the answers. We want to go chase and try to figure those answers out from people that have either scaled companies previously or are doing it right now. And so there's a link online, Growth Scale Guide. And so there's a group of 10 of us that are looking at the question, and hopefully we'll produce a report by April that everybody will have access to, and who knows where it goes from there.
What will the report Not obviously the specifics, but what are you hoping to get out of the report? Like a roadmap, a strategy, what?
A little bit of that, although to Geoff's point, there's been a lot of really smart guys that have written some pretty good books on this, or at least, I'm a big Guy Moraz fan, so How I Built This is just like my favorite. So there's a lot of good podcasts on this too. I think what's missing when I look at scale and growth tactics, strategies, and companies, there's not a lot of quantitative evidence out there where it's like, all right, you're telling me this is important, but tell me the 100, 150 people that say that's the truth. A lot of times you'll get growth hackers and people that anecdotally have done stuff that may have been right for that company, might not be right for another company. So we're trying to put some substance behind some of those answers and go, look, this is a myth. In truth, this is not the case. Or no, you know what? Those people that anecdotally were bringing this up, it's so true that the preponderance of scale companies do it this way.
And
I'll tell you quickly, you want to grow a company, measure what matters. That's figure it out, for what matters in your business, measure it, and you can grow it. And it's if you can get that structure together, and maybe the report that's coming out can help people understand what to measure specifically in their company, and then what to measure specifically in a division, and then what to measure specifically in a role, and then what to measure specifically in a customer. These are very specific measurements that ladder to a greater good. If anything is broken in that ladder, the growth won't happen. It's just that easy. Unless, of course, you're one of the lucky guys. You might have 1,000,000 to 1 product, like a Facebook that's got a viral that goes crazy, and that might happen to a few people. And granted, I give that out as a possibility, but it's rare. The best thing you can do to grow a company is not guess you're going to win the lotto, but to build the income generation tools that might get you to that $1 million. Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to keep playing lotto tickets, hoping I'm going to win, you got to actually do the work to make the money. And that's a more obvious way of scaling, I think, than hoping you're going to be Facebook.
Yeah, hope is not a strategy.
It is for a lot of folks, especially in digital marketing. Not digital marketing as much as technology companies. Hope is definitely a strategy.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work out for them?
Well, as you see, 9 out of 10 fail. So, and then billions of dollars of investor money go to Google for Google ads to prop up startups and companies that don't work.
That's why.
You know what the interesting though is we celebrate these guys though, right? Like if I look at, I was just on, where was I? TechCrunch and Mashable, and I was like just looking through all the headlines. Tell me what's the percentage of articles that talk about, oh, they've just acquired that many customers or have that much revenue or that much success versus we just raised this much cash in terms of valuation. 8 to 9 out of 10 of the articles are about valuation and how I was able to convince a set of investors my idea was good.
There's a volatility index in the stock market for a reason. It's emotion.
It's all emotion. Right. I mean, show me that. I mean, I hate to Jerry Maguire this, but show me the money. It's the real money, not like the investment money.
Well, some of it works. Some of it works in the end. But there's one tried and true tactic that any scale pro, they're not going to argue. You got to measure what matters. What specifically matters to your business. You have to measure that and see the outcome, and then measure it again and create a bigger outcome and measure it again. You can't beat that as far as growth is concerned. Hey,
Geoff, what if, and I'll use my blockchain experience here and some of the ICOs that I've seen. I'll ask it as a question. You mentioned measure what matters. What if what my measurement is raising money, and that's my 1, 2, 3 measure, right? You end up with a lot of different phantom companies out there that get the money but have no there behind it. No.
Well, hopefully that your angel investor or your VCs aren't giving you money based on your ambition to raise it. Generally, hopefully the VC's giving you money based on you measuring what matters. They're giving you money because you've measured growth in clients. They're giving you money because you've measured growth in revenues. They're giving you money because you've increased your user base, your time on site. If you're measuring these things, your odds on getting money are better. There's a lot of effort in getting money, but without the right measurements, again, it's an emotional investment. Either it's a cumulative growth rate of a market, a great market opportunity. Most investors aren't stupid. They're just not giving you money because you want it. They're giving you money because there's a good opportunity, hopefully.
Here's the structural problem, though, I find. Investors want to invest in your company because they want to get money out of your company really quickly. So they're investing in the idea that somebody else will buy you within 2 or 3 years, right?
That's very, especially in early rounds, it's very common.
Which is really like the Russian doll effect of, there was no real idea there, but we were able to convince people through momentum and enthusiasm that this will be a big part of the future that never happened.
And that's how a lot of people lose their life savings, is falling prey to that kind of garbage. That happens everywhere. It's unfortunate how much money's lost through emotion and not real numbers. So Jeff Bezos always says, he's like, if the stock market goes up 70% in a year, it doesn't mean you're 70. You can't think it means you're 70% smarter, because when the stock market goes down 30%, you sure don't want to think you're 30% dumber. Right, so you just don't pay attention to those types of emotional swings. They don't really matter. Just build your business and focus on your customer.
Well, Geoff just got divorced, so I guess he's not maybe 50% dumber now, but certainly his pocketbook is, right?
I'm not divorced. I just got married.
No, Jeff Bezos.
Oh, Bezos. Yeah, he did just get divorced, but it seems
no.
They seem
Let's
pretty.
Be clear. Jeff Whitlock is happily married. Everybody.
Yeah, just to clarify. Excellent. All right, cool, gentlemen. Well, we have to wrap up pretty quickly. Just sort of one last point. If you could recommend something to a company to look at scaling or be successful at it, what would that be? Geoff, you want to start?
I think I've made my point here. I think in this webcast, I'm a big activities guy. I'm a big understand the activities that your business has to do every day. Be very clear in your communications, understand those activities, and just do them. Know today you cannot not go to the gym. You have to go. Just do it, and you should be fine.
Oh, excellent. The discipline side, love it. And Sean, what do you think?
I think create a network of people around you. I certainly agree with what just Geoff said, but there are so many blind spots. My personal belief is there's 10 things to really nail and get right. We'll see in our research whether or not people rank them the same way I do, but you can't be an expert in all of them. So surround yourself with great people that work with you, and great people that may not have a paycheck from you, but certainly surround your company with great advice, great advocacy, and great management insight that can help you get to that next stage.
I agree with
Fantastic. That. Yeah, excellent. Okay, cool. So if you're interested in the workshop, wiki-brands/scale-workshop-lab, and the survey as well, which if you participate, you actually get to see some of the results, which is going to be a pretty amazing thing as well. So there's the Growth Scale Guide is the survey as well. So excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, for an amazing discussion. Love your insights. I love your passion too about scaling.
Scale.
For me, it's all that matters. So that's
scale.
the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining me. If you take a look at, sorry, I'm just finding my notes here. Go to wiki-brands.com/webcast. Thank you, Geoff, and thank you, Sean, as well. And I'm your host, Doyle Buehler. We have some amazing shows coming up as well on Wikibrands Collective Webcast. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day, evening, or night, and we will see you all online. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.